So you've built a SaaS product, validated your idea, and invested in building it out, whether that was through AI or with a software developer or freelancers or whatever it is. Now the real question: how do you make money? How do you go from zero revenue to some revenue, or how do you go from zero customers to your first 100 customers? And at the end of the day, I found this question on Reddit. There's a bunch of answers on there, but nobody really nailed it. So I'm gonna talk to you about how to do this right. A lot of the founders that we work with start in a very similar position, right? So you've built that SaaS product. Now you need to get your first set of paying customers. In this video, we're going to walk through a playbook grounded in real-world examples and practical tips for getting those first customers. So you'll see how to combine lean experimentation method and mindset with hands-on founder-led sales to systematically land your first dozen and then your first 100 customers. All right, let's dive in. The first thing to remember is that the first set of customers you get, they're not just your customers. They're going to be your co-creators, right? So they're going to help you shape the product, shape the vision of the company, validate your market, and they're going to become your strongest advocates if you're able to delight them. Your job right now is not to build the perfect product. It's to test assumptions and learn rapidly. So this is what Eric Ries, the author of Lean Startup, calls validated learning. You're not chasing vanity metrics here, right? Everything has to be tied into revenue. So we don't care about the number of downloads, the number of views, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is how many people are willing to pay you for the problem that you're solving for. At this stage, it's critical that sales are founder-led and hands-on. So no automation, no ads. We don't want to target a broad market. It's just going to be you as the founder, conversation, and lots of hustle. The founder has to step into the roles of sales, prospecting, pitching, closing, customer support, all of the above. Outsourcing sales to a team at this stage severs that feedback channel, and that's extremely dangerous, right? So you lose insights about objections, messaging mismatches, feature gaps, etc. Now think about it this way, right? If you're doing broad market advertising, let's say you need 100 downloads and you're assuming you have a 10% conversion rate at each step of the funnel. You're getting 100 paying customers, so that means you need 1,000 downloads. That means you need 10,000 people signing up on your form. That means you need 100,000 people going through your website and understanding what you're trying to solve. And for that, you need 1 million impressions, right? So that's already quite broad market, and that's a very expensive endeavor. Finding your first 100 customers is almost always going to be about scrappy, unscalable personal effort. At this stage, you likely don't have any marketing engine running. Nobody knows who you are. So you're going to have to roll up your sleeves to get one customer at a time. The thing to keep in mind here is that we're going to be doing things that don't scale. That means manually recruiting users, doing concierge or onboarding, doing custom works, whatever it takes to get those first users loving your product. So what tactics can we use? First of all, you want to tap into your network as much as possible, right? So start with the low-hanging fruit. Start with people who already have a reason to pick up your call. So these could be friends, ex-colleagues, classmates, people at networking events or people who share the same hobbies as you. Whoever you think is relevant for the product that you're building that you already know, you need to leverage those personal connections. And don't just try and do a hard sell. Ask for their feedback, ask for their help, and ask them to try out your product and give you some advice. For example, you might say something along the lines of, hey, I'm working on a new tool that solves X. I think it could really help your company. I'd love to get your advice as a domain expert in this space. But remember not to give away the product for free, right? It sends the wrong message. People will use it to not hurt your feelings, and it's really difficult to start charging later if you've set the expectation that this is a free product. When tapping your network, you can't just blast a generic message on Facebook or Instagram and expect people to volunteer. It has to be personalized. It has to be one-on-one requests. Those are the only things that work. Be mindful not to pressure them into buying something that isn't fit. You really want to position this as a means to get some feedback and advice. People love to help, especially if they respect who you are or are curious about startups in general. There are so many stories of founders who got their first dozen customers just leveraging their classmates, their friends, their colleagues, people they've known in their careers. The crucial thing, it really is that you can't wait for your customers to come to you. You really go out and grab them one by one. So this might mean physically going somewhere to meet them or doing very high touch onboarding. For example, Airbnb's founders scraped Craigslist and then went door to door in New York when they were starting to meet hosts and help them take better pictures and convince them to put their platform up on Airbnb. It's extremely unscalable, but those personal touches and those initial conversations really give you the insight that you need to eventually start more broad market and automated outreach efforts. So ask yourself, what unscalable things can you do to remove friction for people signing up for your product? If you have a B2B SaaS product, maybe you can, set up each customer's account yourself to reduce friction or migrate the data for them. If it's an analytical tool, maybe you can, again, do this themselves, put the plugin tracking script on their website yourself, or walk them through like each step of the onboarding process and show them exactly how to use your product, right? So you have to go above and beyond. Startups take because the founders make them take off. So you have to keep cranking that engine until it's able to, run on its own. Yeah, the critical thing is you have to get out of that comfort zone, right? So this is the hardest thing to do for the first-time founders that we work with. Early stage enterprise requires help. If you need to cold call someone or show up at a meetup and find users, you have to do it. It is uncomfortable. You are putting yourself out there, but there really is no other way to do it. You cannot get customers by staying in your room and writing code and building features. It's not. For example, think about Whitney Wolf, who's the founder of both Tinder and Bumble. For those companies, she went to college campuses herself, got sorority members on the platform, and then showed the app to fraternity members, used FOMO to get those initial customers. And that's really the very interesting thing about having a beachhead customer base, because when advertising and marketing effort is concentrated, that beachhead tends to talk to each other, right? So your efforts get multiplied and you get early users very quickly. All right, so now let's talk about specifically cold email, which is often a really good tool for B2B sales. So since it's 0 to 10, chances are that you're not gonna have enough people in your network to get to your first 100 customers. You'll need to email some strangers too. And a good set of cold emails can get you meetings even if you have no name recognition, right? So there are a couple of key tips. You want to keep the emails very short, like maximum 5 to 8 sentences. You don't want to write a novel in that email. Make it hyper personalized. So again, we don't want to automate outreach here. We want to find 20 to 50 people that are key players in the space that you're targeting and write relevant and genuinely personalized email content for them, and always try to give some value, right? If it's show some social, your business itself does not have any because you're starting out, but you as a professional might have worked with other companies in that space. You and your co-founders might have some kind of credibility to showcase in this scenario. No spammy HTML or bulk email field that does not. But the good thing, if you introduce yourself as the founder of the company, the chances of getting response increase. The founders get a decently high response rate because people respect that it's the founder reaching out, and they have the opportunity to get a more insightful conversation than the typical sales. The other thing that you need to do is go meet and be where your customers are at. So whether that's online on some subreddits or Slack channels or LinkedIn groups, or in meetups in your city or in the vicinity, where the relevant people are meeting and discussing the things that are relevant to your business. Again, like, we don't want to push hard sales here. We want to go introduce ourselves, introduce the product, pitch this as a way of asking for advice. Remember that, like, at this stage, people are buying you as much as they're buying a product, right? So the goal is really to establish trust. Yeah, so the thing we want to validate, right, with these tactics is the willingness to pay. So you have to charge for your service, or even if it's a nominal amount, right? So if people are not willing to shell out even $1 for the product, then you take that as data and try to understand why that might be. You might be targeting the wrong customer. It could be a couple of different reasons. So you really want to make sure that that there is some kind of dollar value associated with the product that you're. And finally, you have to deliver really amazing customer service and onboard like it. Once people say that they'll try it, the work isn't over, you really have to make them feel like signing up for your product was the best decision. That means, again, hyper personalized, doing things that don't scale, treat them like VIP, roll out the red carpet, and offer to do the training calls, whatever it takes to make sure that they're really, because those people, the early adopters, also tend to be influencers in their space. And if you're able to delight them and solve their problem, they'll likely advocate your product to them. Learn from that, right? So watch where users are getting confused, where they hesitate, what is unclear on the product. And since you're in constant contact, you can adjust your product as well as the communication language that you're using to quickly smoothen out those. It's really iterative, but this give you the infrastructure you need to that more automated service and more automated outreach process. That's it for now. It's all about hustle. These techniques will get you your first dozen to 100 customers. Remember that you're manually grabbing each of them individually, right? And you're bending over backwards to make them happy, but this will set the framework for your business and your sales process